Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast. I'm your host and beat writer, Brock Vieira. You can check out all of our work at www.si.com /NFL /Rams on SI, where we drop double digit pieces of content every single day. Of course, covering the Rams, what's happening with the team, and what's happening, of course, in the division, and how that affects the Rams moving forward. So, of course, today the big news was announced that the Rams will be executing a trade for all pro cornerback Trent McDuffie. McDuffie, a two-time Super Bowl champion, is a first-round pick out of the University of Washington, where he was at one time teammate with Puka Nacua, and also he worked with Jimmy Lake, who is now the Rams, essentially the top coach in regards to their secondary. McDuffie, a phenomenal player, been in championship moments, has a veteran mindset, is expected to also be extended. This is the last year of his deal. He's currently on his fifth-year option. His contract is expected to be worth more than 30 million per season, so that will definitely reset the cornerback market. The Rams, they don't like to spend a lot of money at the cornerback position. The only other time they really invested into the position heavily was, of course, when they made the massive trade for Jalen Ramsey. The Rams made this move because it's clear that the biggest hole in their roster from last season was the cornerback position. And considering the Rams didn't invest any major money into their defensive secondary, there was a need for that improvement to occur this offseason. Obviously, they took a big swing and got to go and get McDuffie. Now this leads to other questions of what they're going to do with the 13th overall pick. Safety position, Cam Curl, of course, is expected to be a free agent. Well, will be a free agent. Will they try and re-sign him, or how that worked out? And just some other things going forward. So I want to make this video. I want to talk about some of my instant takeaways from the moves, my thoughts, and how I see the Rams kind of proceeding throughout this offseason now that this major building block has been taken care of, and they can focus on filling out the rest of the roster, preparing themselves for the future, and also ensuring that they're ready to go and attack 2026, knowing that Matthew Stafford is coming back, and of course the Super Bowl will be hosted at SoFi Stadium this year. So first, my observations. You can check out all of what I had to say and what the entire Rams on SI team had to say about it when you go and check out our website. But the first one is this is a brilliant move. And I know a lot of people are criticizing it because of what the Rams had to give up. The 29th overall pick, multiple picks this draft, and of course a third round pick in the next draft. The good news is though is that despite the pay or overpay from the Rams when it came to this move, they kept the picks that they needed to keep in house. And that is, of course, their day two picks this year, their 13th overall pick, which means that they're going to still be able to select a premier player, and then also the first round pick for next year. So the reason why those picks are so important are this. Whatever they do with the 13th overall pick, there's likely going to be a player that starts day one and is going to be a crucial piece for them moving forward. The day two, day three, the day two picks, so the second and third round picks of this year, those are picks that the Rams are going to be able to get premier players in positions where they need depth. Whatever that might be, who knows? But considering that they have many players who are either about to be free agents this year or next year, and now they're about to spend $30 million a year or more on McDuffie, they're going to need to make some tough financial decisions. Bringing guys in that help make those decisions easier are going to be important, and that's where you got to kind of find those guys in that portion of the draft. At least the Rams have throughout Leslie's tenure, especially in the Sean McVay era. Then you look at the critical positions of need that still remain for the Rams. I still think they need a third wide receiver, which they have kept that possibility alive, keeping that 13th overall pick. Because I don't think that after this move, they're going to be able to kind of get that guy on the free agent market unless they go with a veteran with a clear ceiling, which is always a possibility. There's also the potential to double dip at the cornerback position, considering perhaps a guy like Mansour Delane from LSU or Jermon McCoy might be that 13. Maybe they trade back and perhaps select another cornerback and accumulate more picks. There's a lot of options at their disposal of how they want to address that position if they don't go and add another cornerback in free agency. McDuffie is a great player, but it's clear that the Rams lack a corner that can play against a bigger bodied receiver, like a guy like AJ Brown, for example. Emmanuel Forbes has struggled against him in the past. McDuffie obviously struggled in the Super Bowl. So you do wonder if there's a need to go get a player that fits that archetype. If they want to just get a premier cornerback and get a fourth corner that plays more that reserve role, perhaps even bring back a guy like a Keller Witherspoon for spot appearances while keeping the three-man rotation of McDuffie, Forbes, and a potential rookie lot at their disposal. I think that there's two paths the Rams can go. They can go with this three-man rotation and add maybe a fourth veteran or a rookie as a rotation guy, however they want to go about it. But they could go out and get a guy like Nashawn Wright, a cornerback who's bigger, who's taller, and can handle guys like AJ Brown, and that create a lot of versatility in their corner and their outside cornerback group. They can also go and get a guy back like Roger McCreary to play inside or outside. You could also possibly go out and get a guy like Delane, and then later on in the draft, select a guy that can play in those spot roles or variety roles or however. So, regardless of what the Rams do, with this move for McDuffie, they've kept all their options open, and that's the important part about what I'm trying to say. Then you look at that safety position. I do think that there is a wanting from both parties, the Rams and Cam Curl for a reunion because Curl has been such a critical factor. And due to now McDuffie, I think Curl is going to be able to expand his already growing role. I think he's going to be able to play a little bit closer to the box as well, or maybe stay in that center field role, whatever he feels more comfortable with. But when you know you have a corner like Trent McDuffie covering one side of the boundary, it makes things a lot easier for you to keep your eyes focused because you know McDuffie is going to take care of what he needs to take care of. You also wonder, though, in the back of your mind, considering Michael Hunter, the Rams' new assistant, defensive assistant, comes from Ohio State. If a guy like Caleb Downs is there at 13, now that you have a guy like McDuffie, do you go for a guy like Downs, considering you already have guys like Quentin Lake and Jalen McCullough who play closer to the line of scrimmage, a role that you would want a guy like Caleb Downs to play? You also wonder this, hypothetically, if the Rams go out and pick up a guy like Caleb Downs, do they have formations in which Quentin Lake replaces um, Omar Spates as the linebacker, and then the Rams maybe rotate Jalen McCullough and Caleb Downs on the field more in order to utilize their effectiveness? There's a lot of potential here at the 13th overall pick, but the important part is they kept it and that allows them to do a variety of things, especially as this draft starts to shake out in the way that I think that it will, which is Mendoza first, and then a massive run on pass rushers, especially edge defenders. Once that happens, all those premier picks that aren't in those categories are going to start to stack up, and as teams go for them, the Rams are sitting there at 13. I think that they're going to have the ability to go and get the best player available, and that player will be an instant contributor for the team. Moving forward with this move, there has to be a concern in the NFC West if you're everybody else, because a guy like McDuffie, for the most part, can cover every top receiver in the division. The 49ers don't really have a top guy right now. It's more George Kittle than anything. But even with him, you also have to wonder what his health is going to be come next season. In Seattle, it's Jackson Smith and Jigba, and we're also hearing news that there's a potential Rashid Shaheed might not be back next year because he's expected to be a free agent and he will get top dollar. Could this be the move that finally shifts the balance of power back towards the Rams in the West? I think it is. And here's why. When Jared first said last after the NFC Championship game lost that the Rams they weren't like mentally mature enough to win, that is a statement that is just bizarre. When you go out and you get a guy like McDuffie, you put another tactician on the field. And then you start to establish these multiple lines of communication that I think are going to help the Rams out moving forward. Obviously, you have Nate Landon, who's a phenomenal signal caller, Quentin Lake, who is a incredible strategist. And then you also have the veteran presence of Cam Curl in the secondary. I also think Cam Kitchens, who's grown rapidly mentally over these past first 2 years. I think he's going to take another massive jump in his third year as well. Then you also have the lines of communication to the defensive line. Kobe Turner is kind of in the heart of that. And if players like Jared Verse and Braden Fisk take that expected jump that I think they'll take in their third year, you're going to see them start to grow not only from a physical standpoint, but also from a mental standpoint. I think both of them show that they're understanding the game at a much higher level, at a much more detailed pace, and thus, when you know that you have a guy like McDuffie, um, on, guarding against top cornerbacks as a pass rusher, it gives you the confidence to really get into your bag and mix up your moves and start creating and designing feints and attacks that are going to be very effective against offensive line in which you see twice a season, regardless of who that divisional opponent might be. I think that this is the move that not only gets the Rams right mentally so that they don't have this issue again, it's also the move that is going to allow them to play with a lot more freedom because they know for a fact that if that ball goes airborne, there's a good chance that there's either going to be an all pro defender near that ball or there's going to be another excellent defender on the other side who's proven themselves time and time again, regardless of whichever cornerback the opposition targets. You also have to think to yourself, if you have guys like that on the field, teams are going to be a little bit more hesitant to run double moves or any type of play that's going to take a while to develop. If you have Verse and Byron Young grow as edge defenders and be able to contain that more, Josiah Stewart kind of falls into the category as well because of his blatant speed. There's a lot of things that you can do when you force teams into passing downs that are going to allow Kashula to control the pen and really attack this year. I think when you have a guy like McDuffie, you can send a lot more blitzes. I think that Shula didn't want to blitz heavily because he wasn't confident in his secondary's ability to run man coverage. I think that's about to change. And because of that, I think that this move for McDuffie is going to make the Rams much more aggressive on defense moving forward. The last thing that I want to see before I wrap up this podcast is this when it comes to this move. The Rams have been hesitant to execute a big time trade because they recognized what the result of the FM picks era was. Of course, they won a Super Bowl, which is the ultimate prize, but they paid the price for it in 2022, and that was a price that almost cost the franchise everything. Sean McVay as well. There is a point, at some point between 2021 and 2023, even a little bit to 2024, something changed for McVay, where he rediscovered his love for coaching in a new and unique way. And I don't think he wants to set his team up to lose that after this season. That's why I think you're going to see a much more conservative approach for the Rams for the rest of this offseason. I think they'll make one more big signing. I think that they'll use their picks well. But when it comes to the trade market and utilizing some of these picks for just one or two players, I think they're going to hold off on that because they still recognize that there are other issues associated with this team that draft picks will help solve, especially on the defensive side and on special teams. This has been Brock Vieira for the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast. I will catch you all next time. Take care.